We don't want to hold up our friends at Transit too much. Good morning, sir. Good, how are you? Okay, let's bring the September meeting of the Long Island Railroad Committee to order. We'll start with public comments.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good
We
morning.
have 2 public speakers to speak this morning. I would respectfully remind all speakers to observe the 2-minute limit. There will be an alert you will hear and see when you have 30 seconds left. I would also like to ask our speakers to please direct their comments to matters on the agenda. The first 2 speakers today are Jason A. Panero, and the second speaker will be Murray Bowden.
Good morning, fellow Wang. And
Morning.
good morning, Mitch, again. A couple of things that I want to address is one, Carlton de Solusa sending me via Twitter asking why are Long Island Railroad monthly ticket holders who ride on Saturdays being charged step-up fares if they're traveling outside the zone and conductors are not aware of the autumn discount promotion. So that's one detail that I know that Film N is taking note about it. But once again, those fans that use the Long Island Railroad to go to Citi Field, once again is being discriminated on the Long Island Railroad because of a person called Elisa Pica. It is time for Elisa Pica to go, because she is destroying the Long Island Railroad by her nonsense and having unsafety environments, especially at Woodside, when we have the influx of commuters that connect between the Long Island Railroad and the 7 train to go to Mets Willis Point when the Mets play at Citi Field. We had enough of this nonsense, and Elisa Pica has to go. And we want the Long Island Railroad back to its glory. And Philip Ann, please take note about this. When East New York is going to get fixed, it is very horrendous. I want to see if this station is going to be considered to be renovated in the future. So that's all I have to say for this month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Murray Bowden.
I'm shrinking in my old age. At the first meeting, the Metro-North meeting, I practically demanded the president be replaced for cause, because she doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't know how to run an organization. And over the course of the next hour, you heard all of those things they don't know how to do. From Andy Saul asking the correct questions as, why are we giving this contract? Right across the board. I recognize LIRR has problems. Philip is very busy. Mitch, it's your turn. You've heard about the crossing lights for years. If you don't understand that only traffic lights should be used at railroad crossings, please get off the board. It's down to that. How do you expect anybody to do anything right if the idiocy of flashing red lights and traffic lights are on exactly the same point of view from the driver? They need one thing: traffic lights with a red light camera behind them. You want to talk safety? Let's talk safety. Sorry, Mitch. Maybe your time is up too. I got 41 seconds. What's going on around here? You've accepted incompetence for too long. Demand competence. You're doing it the right way. Design, build, watch it closely. But when you've got a system where you have conflicting information for a driver that decreases safety and you don't take care of it, get off the board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes the
Public
speakers
comment
for
period.
today.
Thank you. We have the approval of the minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? No changes. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July 23rd. Is there a second? All in favor? Okay. Any changes to the work plan? No changes to the work plan?
No changes to work.
No changes to the work plan. We'll go right into the president's report. Phil?
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Mitch. I'm looking forward. On Wednesday, I'll be able to be presenting to the larger audience and the board an update on all the critical work that's going on at Long Island Railroad. And I'll discuss the 100 projects, the modernization, transformation of the railroad to meet the growing demands of Long Island. And I'm proud to report on initial key component of that, the double track, which was recently completed and has been in effect as of last week, in addition to other key infrastructure renewal efforts like Hicksville Station, Wyandanch Station, all things that are needed and essential to moving Long Island Railroad forward. And to enable the time to deliver such a bold capital program, we're aggressively balancing that work with Long Island Railroad forward that is moving us beyond fix and repair to prevent and protect. We're also working around the clock on positive train control. That's moving forward, and we are on track for 2018 federal compliance. So as we push ourselves to address issues proactively with newfound urgency, I do want to thank all the men and women of Long Island Railroad and all labor for their support. We couldn't do this without them. It's essential to the success and the future of Long Island Railroad. So as we look for creative solutions, we're reviewing everything from top to bottom in the short term, medium term, and long term to both stabilize and modernize our system for our customers. And I look forward again, as I said, to presenting not only the ongoing efforts, but also initiatives that we're looking towards the future that are critical to addressing the issues and paramount to Long Island Railroad's future. These initiatives are things that we're looking as priorities for the future programs. Having said all that, I do want to make a note of a few items. The EEO diversity report will be available for the October board. I'm also excited to announce Rod Brooks. As of mid-August, Rod is taking over the position of Acting Senior Vice President of Operations. He has a diverse background at Long Island Railroad, began his career in Signals Group, served as Chief Transportation Officer, and recently Director of Eastside Access. Rod's experience and his philosophy of every minute counts makes him a great fit to help take Long Island Railroad into the future. He's the right person for our team as we work collaboratively and focus on the needs of both our customers and our employees. So I'd like to just say, please join me quickly with a warm welcome for Rod. Thank you very much. In other good...
Just while we're on the subject of Rod, if I could jump in.
Go right ahead, Vinny.
Congratulate Rod. As Phil said, a long history. We work together. Rod's worked close with our labor organizations. So we have great expectations and hope that the labor relationship continues and we work together as a partnership. We wish you the best.
We all have great expectations.
Thank you, Vinny. In other good news, with the success of Summer Saturdays, the railroad is extending the program into fall with autumn weekends. Monthly ticket holders can now enjoy and bring up to 4 guests of any age, both on Saturdays and Sundays because of availability and capacity for only $1 each as we celebrate the autumn weekends. Also, be on the lookout for October as we look to launch a new loyalty program for our monthly customers and as we're developing partnerships with businesses on Long Island, in New York City, and Queens, another great initiative to add more value to our monthly ticket holders. So with all that, it's important that I also share an update on the derailments that we had this summer that affected our customers. I want to assure everyone that safety is our core value and that we are following up with appropriate protocols and processes. We're leaving no stone unturned as we review them. We held a safety stand down with our employees to reinforce the importance of safety as a prime agency value. And a third-party consultant will be also assisting the railroad with further evaluating our infrastructure and interaction between that infrastructure and our rolling stock. I'd also like to report that we recently met with Cures and local elected officials regarding our freight operations or their freight operations, and we're able to work out an agreement that allows us to replace one-for-one existing diesel locomotives with green locomotives. This includes the locomotives that they previously purchased from Long Island Railroad, as well as the ones they're currently leasing. A key step to this is that they've agreed to replace and waive their right to purchase the existing lease ones, and the ones that they already have in their possession will be replaced one for one, as Long Island Railroad can procure and replace. It's a key step as we look to address quality of life issues. So as I close my remarks, I want our customers to know that we are taking proactive measures, particularly important as we've seen a nice growth in ridership. Overall, total summer ridership, June through August, increased 1.5% over last summer's figures. We know we have a lot of work ahead of us, but we believe that the steps we are taking are the right things to do. So I look forward further on Wednesday presenting to you on all the strides that we've taken, moving Long Island Railroad forward and addressing reliability issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Any comments or questions for the president? If not, safety?
Good morning. Our safety report can be found starting on page 21 in your book, and we're reporting on our safety performance ending with the month of July. Our customer injury rate is down 51% from 4.6 injuries per million customers down to 2.25 injuries per million customers. We're also experiencing a 12% decrease in the average reportable employee lost time injury rate from 3.59 injuries per 200,000 hours worked to 3.15 injuries per 200,000 hours worked. Two items of note I did want to bring to your attention. With our partners at MTA Police through our TRACS program, we're doing extensive outreach. We started back in August as our customers and the communities in the second track corridor transition to new service patterns. We're conducting a number of Operation Lifesavers. We started back in August. We did a mailing to all of the school districts to enlist their support also to ensure that their students and their families are aware of what the changes are to the service patterns. And for Rail Safety Week, which is this week, every morning and every evening, we will be out at the crossings doing Operation Lifesavers with the MTA Police. So it's a combination of both enforcement and education as the communities transition and our customers transition to the new service patterns. Also wanted to touch on what Mr. Eng referenced in his remarks. We did have a series of stand-downs in the month of August to really emphasize with our employees the importance of our core value of safety, and also to stress, which I think something Mr. Zuckerman has referenced in the past, crew resource management. We call it rail resource management, and really reinforcing for them the principles of teamwork and assertiveness, really being aware collaboratively of your situation. There's a lot of unique hazards in the railroad environment, and by working together, we can ensure safety for our employees, our customers, and the communities that we serve. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions on safety? I will reference the 50% decrease in grade crossing incidents from July of 2018, from July of 2017. Hopefully that trend will continue because grade crossing incidents not only affect the operation of the railroad, in many cases they affect the safety of the person involved in the grade crossing incident. So hopefully that will continue in that regard. Okay. MTA Capital Construction. Jano?
Morning, Mr. Chairman. I just want to expand a little bit upon what Phil said about the double track project, which I work very closely with the railroad on. Double track was completed 15 months ahead of schedule, and it is delivering very significant benefits immediately to railroad customers. Increased reverse peak service, which was obviously impossible in a single track railroad. So all of a sudden, everything from Farmingdale to Ronkonkoma, for the first time, all those businesses have the ability to compete for workforce that may live in the city or points west, which is a huge benefit in today's knowledge economy, that you can recruit in a bigger footprint. It's also going to be key to the overall expansion of service that we're going to accomplish in the peak, including third track and the East Side Access Program, which together with double track will allow us to grow peak hour service in the morning by roughly 50%, a dramatic transformation. So this project, I think, is a milestone. It was accomplished early, and it was, I just want to mention it because I know this committee has been focused on trying to set a new pattern. This is a design-build project, and the benefit, I want to talk very specifically, the design-build approach in this case allowed the civil contractor, Skanska, to significantly reduce the amount of retaining walls. And we're talking about 12 or 14 miles of railroad that needed new retaining wall systems. And by giving the contractor the opportunity to think about how to design it, not as well as how to build it, we saved a huge amount of money and a huge amount of time. It opened the door to that 15-month time savings because of the design-build approach. And then on top of that, we use new technology. We use this track laying machine, which delivers finished track work in very small percentage of the time that all of us regular humans can do it, as good as our workforce is. And the third point I want to highlight about this project was it exemplified collaboration between the third-party union workforce, the third-party contractors, and the railroad contractors. There was a very intelligent discussion of the division of labor between the contractor and the workforce of the railroad, all union on both sides. And then together they banged it out and, as I said, delivered 15 months early, and it was an extremely efficient project. I do not want to underemphasize the incredible performance of the railroad workers. Board member Tessitore was with us when we did the groundbreaking on Friday. There were a lot of work. This was a 24-hour operation for a number of weeks because the installation of all the new signal system was such a tremendous challenge. So the Long Island Railroad signal workforce really did an extraordinary job, and I think we should all be proud of that. So you're going to hear, I think, probably more about it from Phil on Wednesday, but because of the importance to the committee, I didn't want to miss the chance to talk about that success. It's in full operation right now.
I can tell you, as a rider of the Ronkonkoma branch, I thought they did it all for me. But I'll let everybody else get the benefit of it also. It changes the entire nature of the Ronkonkoma trip, without a doubt.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm going to update on East Side Access, if I may, and talk about, hopefully quickly, about a couple of things that are going on. I'm giving a more detailed report at CPOC, so this is more of just a quick review of key things that are going on. One is Harold, we're doing a lot of work in Harold, and we are picking up in steam in what had been, for a couple of years, a problem area. You've got pictures of before you of the track work part 3 being done by Railroad Construction Company, actually same outfit that did a lot of the work on double track. These are rail tracks and switches being set for the future westbound bypass and the Port Washington tracks, and all of this was done very intensively in a 30-day outage that Long Island Railroad provided to us. It's challenging to have outages of that duration, so the railroad made it only 30 days, and the contractor knocked it out, so that's what we like to see. Here's another view of it. You see all the new tracks. You can see the close proximity to the trains that the workers operate in, and why this is such challenging work because of that proximity and the continued operation, even during extended outages. And you see the new poles and the catenary. Our friends at Amtrak get the benefit of the catenary that have been installed for these tracks. The midday storage yard. This is the area on the north side of Harold Interlocking, where we store all of our trains during the day and becomes our operational center. What you're seeing there on the left is the yard service building where the crews will operate from, and the ventilation facility that provides circulation to the tunnels that lead to the 63rd Street tunnel below. And the work that's going on is power, communications, water, and sewage. This is a really important facility for us in Harold. Tunnel approach structure for Track A, that's the inbound track for the new Grand Central service looking towards Long Island City and Manhattan. Here's actually where it turns into a tunnel. Same view of Tunnel A, connects with the approach structure that you just saw. And as work wraps up on Track and Tunnel A approach, the workers are installing all the stuff that supports the systems, the conduits, the ducts, the backfilling excavated areas, and moving through all the punch list work. So we're knocking it out on one extra piece. Many of you have visited the concourse recently and seen how that is coming together. Here's some images of escalator railways. We finished the obviously finished the finishes on a lot of these escalator wellways, and the contractors moved on to the installation of the escalators themselves. And here you see one going on 47th Street. Another shot of another escalator. Right now, we're almost done on, I think, all of the 17 high-rise escalators in all 4 wellways. And now we're moving on to the mechanical and power components that obviously make them work. Next image is the passenger concourse itself. And you can see how the marble is starting to go in on the walls. The cutouts are for those out front customer information and digital advertising signs. Real progress on finishes. When we start to move into finishes, that makes all of us feel like we're getting somewhere. On the upper level of the trackage, the trackage level down below, you see the smoke plenum up above, precast concrete. The elevated area you see in the photo is passenger platform, and those passenger platforms with all the systems embedded in them are fast approaching completion. And the tracks are in on 4 of the 8 tracks as well. Another significant step forward is that we're starting to install escalators and stairways between the mezzanine and the 2 levels of the trackage in the Long Island Railroad terminal itself. Schindler, the escalator contractor, has mobilized and begun to deliver escalator equipment. So the escalators that are going down to the trackage level from the concourse are in, and now we're moving to the escalators that move between the mezzanine and the platforms themselves. And at the south end of the project, at the tail tracks level, we're installing switches and tracks, and you see the tracks being finished up just before concrete is poured to make them permanent. So that is a very, very quick tour of where we stand in East Side Access. We'll talk about it a little bit more at CPOC, but I have to acknowledge that as I reported to the committee and the board a couple of weeks ago, the leader of this project, Bill Goodrich, is retiring after a very distinguished career at the MTA and as a consultant in our industry. And Bill is here. He's being replaced by a very capable guy named Rod Troop. But in the meantime, I have to express to Bill in this setting, in front of this committee, our appreciation for your tremendous leadership. You've always been a steady hand, and I think we've turned the corner on bringing this project forward in the way that the public expects it. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
I'm taking up too much of the committee's time, but I'm going to skip presenting on third track because of time, Mitch, if that's okay.
That's okay.
You'll get a very full presentation at the CPOC committee, and we certainly can get into any questions that the committee may have on that.
But I have seen that work has started. When I was on the train Saturday, I could see the clearing along the track in many of the areas.
Yeah, I mean, we had a groundbreaking, but there is a significant amount of work going on, both utility relocations and actually putting ourselves in a position to start work on the bridges, raising the bridges, so there are no more of those bridge hits that trucks seem to be getting into more often than other areas. We're putting ourselves in a position to start the undergrade crossings at Covert and Urban, and there's a ton of other actual heavy construction work that's getting underway, and this project is moving forward as we wanted it, as a very effective design build.
Okay. Scott?
John, just a couple of questions. Just on East Side Access Start, it looks like great progress, but what is your concern in terms of a critical path situation in terms that raises concern for you right now in terms of meeting the time frame?
Well, I mean, it's no secret. When I reported to the board back in April, we anticipated we had to switch the schedule to accommodate this sort of incremental systems testing approach. So we've dealt with, I think, a lot of the leftover stuff that was slowing us down, the change order process and some of the other complexities. But we're still in the process of coming to terms with the contractors on, the time and the schedule implications of switching to that incremental systems testing approach. So that is something that I feel is very important to nail down in the near term. We're working with the 2 major contractors, Tutor Perini and Dragados, but that's the front of mind for me in terms of being able to deliver a schedule as anticipated.
And how about with Amtrak? Anything to do with them that you were worried about?
You know, we have, I'll talk about this in CPOC, but, you know, Amtrak has definitely gotten better since we started talking a little more publicly about some of the challenges we've had from their staffing problems. It's inconsistent. We are solving the problem ourselves by taking work that Amtrak was supposed to do and bidding it out to third-party contractors ourselves,
Right.
Which has cost and schedule negatives for us, but eliminates that risk. But I'd say we'd significantly improve the Amtrak problem, but without solving it entirely. But my principal focus right now is on getting the incremental systems testing schedule nailed down with the contractors so we don't have any more fumbling around. We need to do this effectively.
And then just going back to double track, just first, great news about being early and the design build, you know, coming through and creating the efficiencies. But just 15 months out of how long was the project, and what sort of lessons that we learned besides the Skanska piece that we might be able to transfer to other projects?
Well, I think the project started in earnest, I think, in 15. And the decision to accelerate it was made possible, I think, by the schedule advantages of the design build, that we picked up so much time from having that approach that I described earlier, and reducing the amount of retaining wall work on that very long right-of-way, that we all of a sudden put us in a position to think about, could we knock this out significantly faster? So I think that's the principal lesson learned, is that a well-thought-out design-build process can have significant schedule benefits. Other lessons learned, you know, honestly, is we had some real challenges we haven't talked about a lot because, you know, some of the signal huts that Ansaldo was working on got burned up in Hurricane Maria and some other stuff. Really, I think close cooperation with your key contractors. The signaling is really, really complicated. And you got to make sure that you have a really carefully designed approach in terms of the signaling. I think we banged it out because we had that level of cooperation literally daily with Ansaldo and Comstock.
Phil, just one for you. Just, you know, with the recent, you know, performance challenges, how much of that is related to the outages and other work that's going on that we need to do for the capital projects? Because this is, you know, we're going to feel the same thing, obviously, with New York City Transit, right? To fix it, it requires creating the outages that Jano raised or modifying schedules, but then impacts performance. And so I'm curious how much that is, and maybe there's a better way to communicate to the public that this is part of the pain to get to ultimately the gain.
We have actually been talking about how to better communicate and set expectations. The collaboration that we needed to ensure that we could deliver the project was essential. It meant that every inch of flexibility we had within our system, we had to take it to provide the outages. That just makes incidents that do occur more challenging and more rippling and cascading. But it's also important to note that by accelerating this and getting it 15 months ahead of schedule, where we are now providing better service, more reliable service, and had we not, those delays still would have been impacted for another 15 months. The other key thing is that as we work closely with Capital Construction in terms of their needs to deliver and the outages that we can provide, that's that high-level communication that's going on. Same thing for East Side Access with Amtrak. We've established higher-level communications because all of the work has an impact one way or the other in terms of how we can provide the outages, when we can provide the outages, and scheduling of the manpower, whether it be the contracting side or in-house men and women along Long Railroad. It's all tied to it. And yes, when an incident does occur and we've taken away the flexibility, it does mean that incident is going to be more impactful. But at the end of the day, this work is, as you said, going to be a much more reliable commute. And in the future, when incidents now occur on the double track, we'll be able to bypass. I was talking with Rod Brooks earlier this morning about it. You know, as we approach the cooler weather, rail breaks, you know, before double track, a rail break, you have to shut down the system. Now we have a rail break, we can now bypass it. Will there be delays? Yes, but we can move people. And that's something that I'll talk a little bit more about on Wednesday, how we're looking to set the program to enable us to move people when incidents do occur.
I think even on Wednesday, if you could talk a little bit about the need to focus on, as you're doing this work, that it does take away any flexibility that you have. There's really no room for error when you start giving these outages, right? So I think that's valuable for the public to understand.
And Jano even referenced it, we had high-level discussions with manufacturers as well, and Saldo was folks that we talked to, because some of the occurrences on the new signaling equipment was something that we needed to make sure they were bringing their experts in, because if modifications were needed, we didn't have the time or luxury to wait for that to be reviewed. They need to be on the ground. They got here, and that's why we were able to, every weekend, perform a tremendous amount of work that was probably unparalleled in the past. And that's why it's important. In the past, we might have said, let's slow it down, let's not finish it, and that's why projects were running late. It's a key thing now to deliver. You're actually saving money by delivering these things on time. The cost of inflation would have just dragged us on.
Yep. Good. Thank you.
Ira?
Regarding Harold, I noticed in the performance report there were a number of weekend delays regarding these Harold interlocking improvements, which references this project. I'm just wondering, going forward, do we have, I assume we have at least some work still left in Harold, and how will that be accomplished? Is it expected to have severe passenger impacts the way this did, or is it going to be over time? How close are we to being finished in Harold?
Well, we're probably a year away from outages that have potential for impacting on service pattern, but let me tell you that Phil is being very, very attentive to making sure that we don't compromise service. So we're reconciling the need to do the work and the service need, but we're being really attentive to and mindful of the service impacts.
One other question on Ronkonkoma. We could wait till Wednesday on this. I'm just wondering what the time frame is for adding service. And right now we have 2 tracks. I know it'd be difficult to do because we don't have 3 tracks on the main line, but I'm just wondering what schedule we might have to even. I think at one point it was that we'd have half-hour service during the midday, but I'd love to know when that's going to be.
The full benefit of double track comes when we have 3rd track complete, but we also have already increased service after we completed it as of Monday. We've added the reverse peak stops, and we've increased the service based on existing levels of capacity, but the half-hourly service will follow it later on.
It's all the definition of later on. For those of us who take half-hour service.
But the service improvements have been added as a result of Monday.
Right.
And people are seeing their times more reliable. No longer do the trains have to slow down when they cross over. No longer do they have to wait for a train going in the opposite direction. The service since Monday has been dramatically improved.
I anxiously await to see the September and October statistics for the Ronkonkoma branch, and I'm hoping they'll be on goal.
We can only hope. Okay, the chief had to get called away, unfortunately. There is the police report on page 31, and if anybody has any questions on the police report, if not, we will go past. Okay. Information items. We have the 2019 preliminary budget, the mid-year forecast, fall track work problems, and PTC status. Phil, I don't know if you wanted to add anything in relation to what is in the book?
Well, the information's in the book. We can answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions on any of these items? Go ahead, Ira.
Yeah, on PTC, I just would like to see at some point the passenger impact. The implementation is going to be on the Port Washington branch as the first line, and are we, I think we're in the process of thinking about whether we have to add time to the schedule or not, and how we're going to go. Because this was a conversation at the Metro North meeting regarding PTC and possibly the need for adding time. So I don't know if we'll have to do that. I think we have to get closer to that. I believe we have to get closer to that time to determine whether we're going to do that. So it'd be good to know that as far advanced in before January.
Yes, we will. The team is currently evaluating that schedule and be reporting out on that shortly.
Thanks.
Any other questions on any of those items? If not, we'll move on to procurements.
Good morning.
Good morning.
There was one item in the competitive section in this month's procurement package in the total amount of $4.4 million. There are no non-competitive procurements, and there are no ratifications this month. The item in the competitive section is a request for MTA Board approval to issue a contract modification in the aggregate amount of $4,350,000 to increase the not-to-exceed funding amount of 3 estimated quantity contracts with bus companies that provide the railroad with scheduled and emergency bus services. Long Island Railroad awarded 15 miscellaneous service contracts under a master contract to various providers, which were all approved by the board in March 2013. Under those contracts, Long Island Railroad orders bus services throughout Nassau, Suffolk, Queens, and Kings counties on an as-needed basis with no minimum obligation or expenditures. Each bus company is called out using established protocols based on available resources that differ by location, vehicle type, and quantity. The original pool of 15 providers was significantly reduced over the years to only 3 providers due to a variety of reasons, including firms departing the bus business, others having safety deficiencies, industry consolidation, and performance issues. The proposed additional funding will cover services to close out those contracts for the remaining providers still servicing Long Island Railroad pending the award of a replacement renewal contract, which is expected to be awarded to several additional providers in November of 2018. Significant bus call-outs for services related to the scope and scale of several large capital projects and state of good repair annual track program projects, including Mainline Second Track, Colonial Road Bridge replacement projects, and the Hicksville to Ronkonkoma Long Beach Branch Wreck Lead Bridge tie replacement, and Farmingdale to Ronkonkoma maintenance projects, in addition to unanticipated service disruptions, have depleted the current contract funding at a higher rate than planned. Of the $4,350,000 being requested, $2,135,581 is for payment to bus providers for current invoices related to busing projects, busing support for Long Island Railroad major construction and state of good repair projects, and the remainder will be utilized for necessary busing services to provide Long Island Railroad during service outages during the period September 1st to November 1st. Contingency funds of $44,419 will also be set aside for unplanned emergency track work. This item is submitted for your consideration and vote.
Any questions on this item? Randy?
Do we ever use MTA bus for these kind of things, to like keep the money in-house?
We have on occasion used MTA bus based on their availability, but for the most part, we are using these various contractors.
In fact, MTA Bus has been supporting us on weekends.
And this, if I'm reading this correctly, this is an interim measure until a new RFP goes out.
We have one on the street now. We should be coming back to the board in November with a new, with a request to award a new contract.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this item? I make a motion to approve. A second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. That's the only Long Island Railroad item for the month. Capital Construction.
Good morning. Capital Construction's procurement package this month totals $51.4 million and begins on page 77 of your committee book. In order to maintain the schedule, I will not highlight any of the items, but we are available to answer any questions you may have. There are no non-competitive items. There are 36 competitive items this month, totaling $47.4 million. These items are submitted for your consideration and vote.
Are there any questions on any of the items for capital construction? If not, I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? And all in favor? Aye. All the items are approved.
There are 2 items in the ratification section totaling $4 million. These items are submitted for your consideration and vote.
Any questions on the ratifications? If not, I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay.
That concludes Capital Construction's procurement package for this month.
Thank you. In the book are operation and financial reports for July and August. Are there any questions for the president on any of those items? Randy?
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get the MARC cars this year. I mean, was there an effect on the ability to provide all the extra service that the East End needs? And are we on track to get the cars next year like we had previous year?
Yes, unfortunately, the MARC car lease agreement that we had, MARC themselves had, Maryland had some issues that they needed to retain their cars, so we were unable to use those. There was an effect on our diesel fleet territory. The East End service was provided, but as a result, in our existing territories, we had to manage how we fulfilled car needs and the car links. We are aggressively pursuing not only renewing that lease, but we're aggressively pursuing other options to look at diesel coaches so we can better provide service next summer. It's part of the long-range plan as well as the short-term plan. What we need to do to solve that issue, as I said, for the current needs and growing needs.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ira?
Yeah, in the report, it does state that the reason for the diesel locomotive lower performance than expected is that they're changing out the traction motors. Does anyone know when that program will be done?
Ron, do you have a time frame for that?
We can get back to you. It's a recent program that was implemented by MOV. They were having a series of in-service failures, so I can get back to you with that information.
Thanks.
Fleet is something that we're going to take a hard look at for our needs because the way it is currently, we have very aggressive timeframes to turn around any working on our cars, whether it's preventive, corrective maintenance, but even the issues that are demand. What happens is we don't have the ability to just pull out another car, and so we are stressing the staff in terms of getting our existing fleet back out into service. So that's something we are aggressively looking as well.
And the timetable for the new fleet? I know we have a procurement construction going on at the moment of new cars. I believe that's...
The M9s are
M9s.
currently being tested. We expect to see revenue service for the M9s. The first one's around May of next year. That's 92 of those cars. And then we have an option that we've enacted with Kawasaki for an additional 110. But even that, we know we need to more aggressively push, and we're going to continue to work with the manufacturer to try and beat that schedule.
Okay. So next spring, people will see the new cars, sometime next spring.
Correct.
Okay, good. Any other comments on any of the other reports? If not, is there anything else anyone wants to bring up? So be it. I'm motion to adjourn. I move. Thank you all very much.